I mean, it does look a bit like we're in some kind of hostage video. But
welcome to Rugby League from Guantanamo.
I want to make a statement because people will think...
I look like I'm wearing something that could be...
People will have seen today, James Dayton from Radio Leeds, people attacking Radio Leeds property. It's not me. I don't go to games anymore. I'm not allowed in. First time I went to Wembley, 2014, working for TalkSport. That was the Hull KR final, wasn't it?
2014.
Oh no, 2014 was CAS. Yeah, 2015 was Hull KR when there were some very unprofessional people in the press box. 2014, I was waiting to plug in and get set up. Anyone who's done the job knows the worst thing about broadcasting is getting set up, because if it doesn't work, you watch this programme, you know what it's like, all the time. And I couldn't get set up because two Burks from Radio Leeds were there in my spot. They had no right to be there. And even though I don't like those people, because they eventually took the mickey out of my friends and colleagues losing their work at Radio Leeds, Radio Yorkshire rather, I won't go and destroy people's boxes. Very sad. Very sad. I should have started that by saying I'd written a whole thing about being Max Bygraves, but I messed that up, so never mind. We are here. I realise we never introduced ourselves on the programme anymore, because I think there's no new audience. This is like Super League. We're going to pretend a whole load of new people have stumbled on the programme today.
Hello, you new people in Montenegro who experienced Rugby League for the first time this weekend. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello, welcome to 4020 Live, where we're very excited this week because we might not be live next week for a start, and it's International Week, Phil.
Well, I am likened to compare Rugby League at the moment to the girl with the curl.
The girl with the curl.
That when we are good, we are very, very good. And when we are bad, we are horrid. And the good things that we do well were certainly on view this weekend. I think the concept of the international is alive and well, and the added dimension of women and particularly wheelchair, which we were privileged to be at live on Saturday, was enormous and shows the true potential reach of the sport to new audiences. The whole debate about things being staged at the same time, I think we've had ad infinitum. But again, I would pay huge credit to two teams in League One at a time when discussion is, should League One get any funding and what's its future? We've got, a 24-all draw in the Cumbrian derby between Barrow and Workington in front of over 3,000 fans, which is enormous.
Not bad, is it?
And then Rochdale play North Wales, which again, Rochdale not had the greatest of seasons so far. But they would admit things have probably not gone as well as they would have hoped.
It must be the Rangy Chase effect. To Shane got injured.
Sign Rangy, last 20 minutes, gone with a broken arm. But they still got 1,400 people there. And I think, the things that we do well, we really do well. I think the fact that there's a discussion later this week about whether the World Cup should go ahead, it just sort of makes you weep, because was at a Jamaica event during last week, which I think we mentioned on the show. Totally uplifting. Nothing to do with results on a field, about a difference it can make in a community. You looked at the potential of what the Women's World Cup and the Wheelchair World Cup could bring to the sport, and you think, wow, those growth areas are potentially massive. And you look at us struggling along into a week where we're going to have too many games and too many injuries and no form line on any team, and a standard that will be questionable through nobody's fault. Coaches getting really frustrated. I mean, there was a really telling comment by Richard Agar yesterday after the game when at one point it was 11 against 11. He said, well, the amount of people that we can get out for training at the moment, that's how it goes. We knew what to do when we went down to 11, because most weeks that's all we can get out on the field. We're
going to scrap the rest of the competition and just play sevens.
And it's not right. So the things that we do well, I am convinced that there is potential. The things we do badly, And we can talk about two very, very different press conferences that have taken place in the last few days. You do worry? You genuinely worry?
The good news is for people on YouTube, they can see it. It's like professional setup and graphics and everything. To people on Facebook it's like watching on like old standard definition televisions before they switched it off. Half my head's cut off. Well, what have I done to the camera there? That's just pathetic. But we've already had some comments.
You could go on your knees, but then people would definitely get the wrong idea.
Andy referencing Matt's Bygraves, pink toothbrush, blue toothbrush. One for the younger viewers. We don't have any young viewers, do we? No. This is very much an audience who listens to medium wave radio. Is Super League on the decline? Asked Andrew. Andy, just throw a question in there like that. I mean, if you think we are, Jermaine McGilvery, what are you asking? And Andy's replied and said it's suffering from self-interest and COVID-19. It's
a really good question. But I don't think we're seeing anything we weren't expected when they decided to go to 25 games and try and cram them all in. The bigger issue is I find it very hard when certain owners of Super League say we're doing all we can for England to have a successful World Cup, asterisk if it goes ahead this year or not, which we'll know on Wednesday. So some mixed messages coming out about that at the moment. Some say it will, some say it won't. When they schedule fixtures on the same weekend that England are playing, how is that helping England?
Same time as England are playing. Hello Huddersfield and Hull FC. Hull FC and Huddersfield. Get it right way around.
You know, is it in decline? Does it need a radical shake-up? Would it be any better if it had done? Probably.
Where's Shane Richardson? And his plan?
That is one of the two very interesting media conferences that have happened this week. One by Shane Richardson, which we'd love to repeat in full, but would be taken off air.
There was stuff which is off the record. The off the record stuff was brilliant, but sadly,
But basically, what he was saying was, we have an unmarketable sport here, and that if you were an investor, and we are desperately in need of investors, you have nothing to invest in. And the one thing he was saying, which backs up what Brian Noble has been saying, is the issue starts with the governance of the sport and the need to have an independent commission. And Shane Richardson's argument was, it happened in the NRL 9 years ago. You had some people around the table, like the owners of the Rabbitohs and the Roosters, multi-millionaire people, hate each other for 110 years, genuine rivalry and animosity between them. But they realised that they had taken their individual clubs as far as they could go and saw the need for something that was bigger than all of them. And it wasn't plain sailing, but an independent commission which was genuinely seemed to be independent in that nobody could be on it who'd been involved in any form of governance for the previous 3 years. So if that was over here, there'd be no RFL involvement, there'd be no Super League involvement, there'd be no independent RFL board involvement. They would be all new people. And he recommended that not only should we do it because external equity investment would come in, but the value of the clubs who you would think would oppose it had gone up a third. So they were absolutely right, the Rabbitohs and the Roosters and everybody else, to say we need to take a step back and let somebody else be in charge of this sport, because our business has grown to the point where we now have a much bigger asset than we had, and we need to do that. Contrast that with the press conference that been on this afternoon with Ken Davy and some of the people from Super League, and I have to say, with the greatest respect to Ken Davy, he was a fine businessman in his own right, completely in denial. Everything's fine. Television figures will go up, or why's the deal gone down by 30% then? More investors will get involved, and we're having a realignment with the RFL, but it isn't going to be as it was. It's going to be a realignment, and they've got better because they've got better people, and we can go in, but we still want to have a bit of it. And you're going, have you thought of an alternative whereby it's something completely new? No, we're not prepared to even discuss that. When you talk about the standard of Super League, I have nothing but admiration. I think might have been Darryl Powell after Wednesday's game between Casford and Castellan. So two incredibly tired teams. I just don't know what you expect from that. So can't blame the players, can't blame the coaches. if the standard's going down, can only look at the administrators.
It's not the people on the pitch or the coaches we're blaming, is it? It's the people.
And that's
in
not
suits.
negative.
No.
There was a tweet put out this weekend that basically echoed the girl with the curl, that what we do well, we do really, really well, and what we don't, perhaps is going to come back and haunt us. And a lot of people took the time and trouble to reply to that, who've been season ticket holders who have not renewed. Well, if I'm Rugby League, where I rely on that core support, I'd be really worried about that. Why are we not talking to alienated fans? Because we can't sell out limited capacity stadium at the moment. And so when restrictions are lifted, hopefully on the 19th of July, there isn't suddenly going to be a huge influx of people who are going to come back to the sport. So what are you going to give them? Wheelchair.
Something's happened, hasn't it, in the last 18 months? And I know the obvious things happened. And we did hint at it, and have hinted at it plenty of times on the programme, is that you're in a habit of going to XYZ ground on a Friday, Sunday, Thursday, whenever the games were, and having your life almost planned around the fixture list, and getting annoyed when Sky moved the games, but you still did everything to change your work pattern or whatever to get to games. And now that habit's gone, and you found other things you can do, and you can watch the games at home, which you're already paying for on Sky, because you've already got that to watch everything else. And you don't have to go out and be around people, some of which are idiots, which we'll talk about later.
I genuinely think that there was an assumption made in certain stratas of the game that as soon as people were allowed to come back, they would flock back. It was going to be the post-World War II syndrome. And it hasn't happened. And one of the reasons it hasn't happened is because people want change. Now, the change that we all want will be different. But I think what we're feeling is, because nothing's changed, we've sort of... Some people have fallen out of love with it. And it's going to take something quite radical to get them back. And that's not necessarily what their club can do. They can only be the best they can be. It's under what auspices do they operate? And I have a genuine fear if the World Cup is postponed. What shape will Rugby League be in this time next year? I mean, at the moment we're all saying we need the World Cup because it's going to give the boost and the impetus that we need to help us get back on our feet, and new audiences and people will fall back in love with it. And I get that. And that may very well be the case. And the ticket sales for places like Newcastle and London are really, really encouraging, and they're first-time buyers according to the data, and not even necessarily Rugby League fans.
Is that actual data rather than made-up data as well, which is good?
It's almost addresses like where people live. And I think if that genuinely is the case, then to have it postponed for a year would be a massive blow, because I genuinely don't know what state the sport will be in a year's time.
I can't remember if it was you who said on this programme that the World Cup was either going to be this big party or a giant, almost like wake for the sport. Someone said it. I can't remember who it was now.
No, I'm hopeful, and I say that the timetable for those that are keeping a tab on these things is the World Cup board had a meeting today, the international board have a meeting tomorrow, and clearly it's the international board that run the World Cup and subcontract it to the World Cup organisers. And then there is due to be a statement on Wednesday from Troy Grant, the chairman of the IRL, one way or the other. Word over the weekend was that there was some briefing going on saying prepare for a postponement. I'm not sure, but I'm led to believe that the Players Association in Australia are pro the game, the competition going ahead. There will be some dissenting voices. The clubs are the ones that are putting pressure on some of their players, because if they have to quarantine for 2 weeks, they'll be back late for pre-season training. But Tonga, under Christian Wolff, in his press conference today for St Helens, has come out and said, if we need to make some sacrifices, we'll do it. Our guys are absolutely committed to playing at the World Cup. Now, the more nations that come out and say that, the more chance we've got of it being on. And at this stage, I think with all the work that's gone in, and we want to trade off the back of, and we'll talk about the individual games and what they tell us. The women's game was a fantastic occasion. The atmosphere at the women's game was better than the men's game, and yet that was 60-0. What does that tell you? we may say this more than once tonight, and I think I may have already mentioned it. The wheelchair afternoon in Sheffield was sensational.
Well, we found a new toy, viewers. We found a new toy. Paul tweeted yesterday. He tagged us in it, and he wasn't to us, but we're tagged in it. It wasn't someone abusing us, which is good. He said, I've completely fallen out of love with rugby league. Watched a couple of games this season, but not really bothered. Yes, I check the results and occasionally listen to 4020 live. But other than that, I just don't care. I like the fact you listen to the programme, just a kid.
What would that tell you?
I've got all these podcasts, but occasionally I listen to the podcast.
We know nothing.
Quality getting poorer on and off the field, too small-minded. I've probably watched the same number of women's games as the men. Pity the game does not realise that the traditional men's game is not where the growth is. Paul said, replying to me, saying, "Go watch the wheelchair game because you'll love it." And
I think the other thing about and we mention this a lot, the problem about developing the women and the wheelchair game and the other variants, PDRL and LDRL, comes under the RFL, as does the international game. The club game comes under Super League, and unless you get that marriage, and ideally you'd have something overarching telling everyone in what direction they need to go that encompasses all of the sport, it's fractured, it's dysfunctional. It's why you get teams playing at the same time as the international team. You get Jermaine McGilvray coming out with comments about how the game's stagnated, and yet his chairman is the executive chairman of the game.
As I tweeted yesterday, so whenever it was, Super League should get him and Ken Davy on their podcast together. They can
Ken loves him, and he thinks he may be right in some of the things he says. Well, do something about it.
Listen to him.
Yes. Change.
I'd probably trust Jermaine McGilvray more than most people involved in rugby league, because he seems to have a sensible head.
Players and the coaches seem to all be giving us a message at the moment, and that is that something isn't quite right in the structure of the game. Not we're not talking about which team should be in what division, but overall there is an issue with how they feel. There is a lack of direction for the sport. The things that we witnessed this weekend that are good were just upliftingly good, and we have to find a way of harnessing that.
Captain Hindsight, of course, he had dug into his old tweets again this week and didn't upset Castleford, which makes a change. But found a tweet from last year where I was referring to people who work for rugby league clubs saying, don't wear masks and stuff. And then, lo and behold, what would happen then the week? But the Hull Kingston Rovers have to cancel some games because of COVID.
3 games. So,
you join the dots, you add 2 and 2, and you work out, that's bringing the game to disrepute.
I also think that once we go to percentages and we acknowledge the fact that COVID could well be an issue, and it's, unavoidable. Sydney's in lockdown at the moment. They're talking about desperately trying to not have games behind closed doors.
A magic month in Brisbane.
Well, they need to see some quality rugby league in Brisbane because they're short of that at the moment. That is for sure. One for Mr. Davidson there. Why are we cramming so many? I'm looking at the fixtures for this week, and it's just a head shaker. If you knew COVID was going to be an issue, make it easier for the players, not harder. What is going to happen? Heaven forbid, if such a place exists, and it isn't Headingley. What if we get an issue in the run-up to the cup final? Just make it easy for the clubs. Don't make it hard for the players.
Here's CG on YouTube. Can you see us capitalising on the potential growth you just mentioned with the current administrators in charge? I can't.
I can if the people who are in charge are given licence to do what they need to do. I think one of the reasons Ken Davy had a call this afternoon was to say that negotiations are about to start between Super League and the RFL about what he kept referring to a realignment, which presumably is we've got all the money but we've got a lot less than we thought we were getting, and we're now going to start telling you how much you're going to be getting, but don't be surprised if it isn't very much, because we haven't got very much to give you. Now, it's not that you can't grow the variance, it's you can't do anything if you don't know how much money you've got. Now, one part of the game decided how much the other part of the game is going to get. It's not really the fault of the people who have their hands out going, how much can we have? It's the fault of the sport for not saying, shouldn't be in the hands of either of these. If it's an overarching commission that is free of any vested interest and it identifies wheelchair, women, variants, being X level important, it'll make sure it has that amount of funding. At the moment, it literally is hand to mouth.
Andy says we need fresh faces and ideas. Remember when Richard Lewis came in with fresh faces and ideas, and everyone said, "Oh, we don't like him because he's
got fresh face and some ideas."
And he's not a rugby league person. And then when we get a rugby league person, we say, "Oh, we don't like him because he's biased. He's from Leeds."
There are people we have met, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers have as well, that you would say if they made a decision on behalf of rugby league, we could pretty much accept that it was in the independent eye of what's best for rugby league. The greatest administrator I ever knew, and I make no apologies for bringing his name up as often as possible, was the wonderful Harry Jepson. Apart from being magnificent company, a wonderful raconteur, he is involved in most of the big decisions that have been made as an independent director. He was a grandee of the game that, when a board of directors was first set up at the RFL, was asked to be one of the... Now, Harry was the most passionate Hunslet fan you could ever wish to meet, but I don't think anybody who came across him or met him or was influenced by him ever felt that he would ever make a decision that was pro-Hunslet. He brought in the Great Britain Colts. There's so many things that he's been involved in. The Paris experiment, he was asked to do the best that he could to salvage that. Went over there because he's such a respected man, spoke French. And I think there are people that we all know that are involved in the sport that if you said, well, yeah, but clearly he was born growing up watching Team A,
well, look at
that they would make a decision that wouldn't necessarily be anything to do with an allegiance to Team A.
We just had the nonsense of the academy decision on every level, in which everyone decided to pick out the credentials of those on the independent panel because the decision didn't go their way, which Shane Richardson was bloody right about what he said about that decision. And the backtracking of the decision, which...
Yeah.
Where's those MPs gone? Where are the MPs? Where are they?
The other thing as well, if I was Dean Andrew, who... And I know we're rambling tonight, but...
Not allowed to.
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not that we couldn't get a guest. There's some great stuff on the channel, interviewing people at the wheelchair game. I would urge you to catch up with that, because if we want to make characters for the sport, you interviewed a lot of them post-match. But again, going back to Dean Andrew, who I think that whether he's a whole season ticket holder or not, he's an Air Commodore who made sure that the game is being played in the armed forces to a certain level. He has a real degree of kudos about him outside of the sport. I wonder what he thinks as the chairman of that panel, whose decision was then rescinded by the people who asked him to be chairman of that panel. So you can have independent governance, but then you've got to allow whatever they come up with to at least be given the chance to flourish.
We had a complaint last week that we don't talk enough about the games on this programme.
Okay.
Unless our teams are involved. To which I would say I think I said last week Wakefield Castle was rubbish, and I don't want to talk about it because it was rubbish. Not because Wakefield lost, because I didn't see Wakefield Wigan this week, and Wakefield won, and I'll just say Wakefield won. Can't watch all the games. There's no point in sitting here and talking about games we didn't see. Did you see Matt Hancock? You know Matt Hancock? You've heard of him. Used to be an MP. No, he's still an MP. Used to be the Secretary of State for Health, expert in security cameras. He apparently, according to Twitter, which he's never wrong, used to report on university rugby games, which we assume, obviously, know that what that means. It's the wrong one. But didn't go to them because he was busy, and reported off the TV. That would never happen in rugby league.
Well, we'd never get a university game on TV.
Do you remember you showed the varsity game for about 3 weeks?
It was played the other week.
Yeah.
Not really, I think, at the same level as it used to be on Sky, but I think the university sector is, again, another a thing that we do really well, but we don't exploit it enough. And there are some people involved in that who are... Can I say, as you can read in the current Forty20 magazine? There's a guy who's just set up the San Diego Barracudas, who came through that university system, got 3 blues at Oxford for the varsity game against Cambridge in Rugby League, and set up a women's team at Manchester University, and now has set up a team in San Diego.
Cuckoo dada. Why are fans taking over the Pie Dome on Wednesday, says Andy? Someone's going to buy tickets. That's good. What else have we got here? Andy says the Salford Leeds match, was it a boxing match? Sounds like it was.
It had some elements of that in it. Those who wanted to see the biff brought back would have been in their element there. There were at least 2 incidents that involved the flying of the fist.
Violence.
Yes, I suspect that everybody's now seen the punishment. I think there's 3 on each side have been banned. And Conrad Horrell still doesn't know what day of the week it is.
Are they trying to handicap the game against Leigh on Thursday, give them a chance against them? Something I don't know.
It was. We can talk about that one when we done some of the others. It was a very strange game. Salford are a very indisciplined side.
I was going to talk about the women's origin, but there's no report in the paper, so I've forgotten the result.
8-6 to Queensland.
8-6. Oh yeah.
I only remember because Queensland won
late penalty
on the basis of the fact that clearly in the men's Queensland don't exist anymore.
I wrote loads and loads of notes about the game because I might write a bit about it in the column. New South Wales. How did they not win that game? I don't know.
But then a question to be asked.
Yes.
How can they change the rules?
Well, they've got all kinds of different rules.
They play 70 minutes, first of all.
Yeah.
They have a 30-40 rule and a 50-20 rule.
Yeah.
They didn't play the 6 again.
Here's David. Women's State of Origin played on Friday. Scrums, no 6 again. Only 35 minutes per half. Just how many sets of rules are there? Plus the, what was it?
40-30 and 50-20 kick.
Not changing the magazine. Don't have to change the logo on the screen up there. That's not 40-30 rule. It's no good. New South Wales 26, Queensland 0, so they may as well cancel that. I did enjoy the pre-match because I was working yesterday afternoon, so I only saw the first half. But I did enjoy the pre-match where they did a song from 10 years ago, which is the kind of thing the RFL do, is bring out an old band. So it's good to see the NRL do the same thing as well. Should we talk about our Saturday afternoon? Because it was it was a fun trip to Sheffield, which is always good. The City of Steel. Went past where the Don Valley Stadium used to be, paid our respects, and saw England beat Wales 102-22. We didn't have a clue if that's a big result or not, because we don't really know much about wheelchair rugby league.
I think it's safe to say that when you get on a roll, it's almost impossible to stop.
What we did learn was, bloody hell, it's fast. And it appeared, there doesn't appear to be much stopping.
There wasn't any. I mean, when you think that there are the most unbelievable collisions, and again, I would urge you, if you haven't seen it, to get to a game if you can. If the World Cup's going to be on, there's matches in Sheffield. There's also games at the Copper Box. Mm. If you can get there, go, because you don't really appreciate, even on telly, the speed and intensity of it. But not a single stoppage for an injury. You'd thought, a dislocated finger or a bruised hand, or how many times were players thrown out of their chairs and they just lever themselves back up and carry on. So that is 80 minutes of constant, relentless play, which doesn't happen in any other variant of the sport. No,
I think the only major stoppage was for a wheel falling off.
Yes, it flew off.
A wheel fell off.
And a bit like the Formula One, somebody ran on, just clipped it back on, play on. Fantastic. And you don't appreciate the skill levels until you see it close up. And the ability to take a tag that's been thrown on the floor and replace it on your shoulder, which is effectively the play of the ball, is a skill in itself. The ability to pass a ball with one hand because you're steering your chariot with the other, incredible. The hits over the top, which at the end of the first half, just as the hooter was going, one of the England players chipped over and a Welsh defender and an English attacker went absolutely helter-skelter for the ball. The England player just got the ball down as the two collided with a huge clash of metal and both fell out. It's just incredibly dramatic and just uplifting from the point of view of you see people just doing superhuman things, and it's rugby league. It's not a variant of rugby league where it's been tailored. If you tuned in and watched that for 5 minutes and you realised you've got 6 possessions, you've got tackles, you've got kicks, you've got slipping the ball out of 2 chairs when they're around you, overlaps created, cut out passes, chip and chase. We saw one
Yeah.
that Scoey would have been proud of. On a last tackle chip and chase, and it was by England captain Tom Halliwell. As good a skill as you could wish to see. I know we're probably going on too much about it, but I loved it.
No, it was great. I hope people enjoyed it on the telly. I've not seen it actually yet, so I don't know how it came across. And as Tom Croy, the England coach, was telling us last week, it was a test for them to see how to broadcast it to the wider world. So hopefully it came across so well as well.
I've seen some of the clips, which was obviously that BBC coverage, and it comes across incredibly well. And I think we should also pay tribute not only to our colleague Mr. Wilson, who was the lead commentator, but his summariser, who was asked to do it as a favour to Martin Coyd, who's been one of the people behind the setting up of Armed Forces and Wheelchair Rugby League, and obviously his son now is the England coach, his other son just accidentally came off the bench and scored 4 tries. It's quite a talented family. Yeah. But because of his association with Armed Forces Rugby League, he knows Brian McDermott very well. Brian's been incredibly supportive of what they've been trying to do and agreed to summarise, and apparently loved it, enjoyed it, was very good at it, added an extra layer of knowledge about it, and even spent 20 minutes talking to the England coach after the game. Now again, if I'm the national coach of the wheelchair team, I've got a guy there who...
He was quite good, wasn't he?
He's the most successful Super League coach you've ever had, whether you like him or not, he is. That was fantastic as well.
I remember before seeing a game live, before ever seeing anything of it, thinking we could go down, and I think Scotland actually invited us to a training session. We could go down.
I'm not going anywhere near.
No, and I think it would be hugely disrespectful of us to do so, because
absolutely,
that is elite sport. I don't think. I don't know how they find those gaps, especially when the pitch is small. It's like Odsal. The pitch is small.
The in goals are bigger at Wales.
They are. The chairs are, they're as wide as they are. How they find the gap, I don't know, but they do. So it's superb entertainment, brilliant.
One of the tries was he started eating a biscuit, which is very rude. But there's only 2 of us, so I can't get away with it. Biscuits. Dip of the shoulder.
Yeah.
And accelerate down the touchline. As good as any try you'll see this weekend. Good.
I'm surprised that England players made it into the World Cup team of the week, and England men, I should say. But Liam Fowler did.
It's a mixed sport as well. So
I tell you what, the one thing I still don't get is the positions in terms of what everyone is. Because with 5 on the court, the pitch, whatever, I don't know what everyone is.
I think you've just got to be versatile, because you have to make yourself available wherever the ball is, or you have to read where the opposition are going to attack. So I think you are just a wheelchair rugby league player, you're not a fullback or a centre. Or
was that first clank?
You've got to be there, haven't you, to fully appreciate.
And we're big fans of Wales as Jodie Ann Boyd Ward just pushing her former England teammates over. Just pushing them over. Big fans. If you haven't seen the interviews from Saturday, they're all up on Facebook and YouTube on the usual places, so go and check them out, and you'll find some new people who you can support, because they're top athletes, and there's a World Cup coming up. England are in there, Wales.
Well, there is one coming up, we just don't know until Wednesday when. But
we're looking forward to it, and it was really good, and I think the Challenge Cup finals this week, so I don't know who Leeds are playing. I know Leeds are in it.
They're playing the Argonauts.
The Argonauts. That'll be a proper...
which I think is a repeat of last year's final.
I mean, that's proper drama there, because of course you've got half the Leeds team... Well, I suppose all the players are all Leeds players. Maybe I might should do that. But the Argonauts, of course, you've got Joe Coyte, who came off the bench and scored those tries, and Lewis King, the current Golden Boot winner. So... What a battle that will be.
Can I make
that's on the BBC as well?
Nomination for Player of the Week?
Do whatever.
Shaunni Davies.
Oh.
The Welsh women's captain.
Tackled everything that moved.
I don't know if they kept stats on the women's game. Don't think Opta have put them up yet, if they did. But I reckon that even in a 60-0 defeat, and bearing in mind this is Wales' first test match, they may have played some games last year against community-based teams. This is their first test match. They've never played a team like England in terms of experience before. And she was the captain. playing at scrum half, which again, one of your attributes as a half-back, Scully will tell you, is not the ability to tackle. He still can't get over the number he made in the 1992 test in Melbourne. He's regretting watching the rerun videos of that. I reckon she made 60 tackles in that game, and I apologise to her if it was more. But technically, all of them really, great tackles and ball clamping tackles. And in a team where it's easier then to give in because you're going to be heavily beaten and you want to set the example as the skipper, she was sensational. She was absolutely magnificent, and I have nothing but the most massive admiration for the way she led her team.
I don't know if I went into the game overthinking how good England would be and underplaying how, or maybe thinking Wales would be worse than they should be. I don't know, because and when I say that, I think Wales have got no experience whatsoever.
We're not playing against that level of intensity.
So I'm not disrespecting Wales at all in terms of their abilities or whatever, but this is not a team with millions of rugby league caps. They've got 0 caps.
Yes, until this week.
Coming up against 8 members of the team who've just won the Challenge Cup, who are the best team in the competition,
and who've been in, various World Cups,
so on and so forth. I was kind of underwhelmed by England at the weekend. And maybe that is because of how good Wales defended, which again sounds ridiculous when the score's 60-0. Well, the bookmakers had it as 60 for England, so it's handicapped high on the coupon.
But also, if we go back to the women's state of origin, 70 minutes. At the 70-minute mark in the England-Wales game, it was 48-0. And I think that's a fairer reflection of the effort Wales put into the game.
Yeah.
And they were always going to tire at the end of each half because they're just not used to playing it. And clearly there was a little bit of naivety around kicks on the last tackle because it was almost like the team moved forward as they do in rugby union to protect the kicker. So they were all immediately offside. There were a couple of occasions where you could see forwards running in who were almost turning in the tackle as if they were going to recycle the ball rather than get as many metres forward as they could and hit the ground and get it up and play it quick. That'll all work its way out. But some of the performances of the Welsh players, bearing in mind that they were coming up against some of the best we've got over here, was sensational. But again, I don't think the crowd worried too much what the score was. What they could see was effort.
Yeah.
What they could see was a willingness not to give in, even under the most extreme pressure. It's a cruel game, rugby league. You can tackle brilliantly for 5 of the 6 tackles and concede on the 6th. You can actually play well and get heavily beaten. And I think those people that were at the ground or watching it on the telly or commenting on it could see that level of effort being put in. And the other thing about forgive me again, but the singing of the anthems is one of the things that makes international sport really special, different from the day-to-day we watch in Super League. And the singing of the anthems at the women's game and the wheelchair game were magnificent. The wheelchair idea that when your name is called out, you move slightly forward to acknowledge the crowd, just brilliant. But the passion with which, particularly the Welsh, because singing a national anthem clearly is everything.
Well, they've got a proper one, haven't they, as opposed to...
As a neutral fan, or even as a fan of the opposition, you're in awe. The hair stands up on the back of your neck. Well done, Wales. And England did what England needed to do. They had a hit out.
I mean, in fairness, it does say here, these are the words of Craig Richards. At times we were scrappy in attack, which seems strange to say given that we scored so many points, but it showed what we can do as a team. So maybe I wasn't too far off with my assessment.
I think you're probably right. But then they haven't played a game together
for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Yeah.
So, a bit like you can't read too much into the England men combined nations game.
Yeah.
There's no point because you're talking about 2 teams that were thrown together who were pretty evenly matched. The difference was a penalty goal. The England players have been training since the turn of the year because they've been given elite status, and they're a bit clunky because they haven't played together for a long time. But they didn't concede a point. And Jodie Cunningham again, who we know is big on taking a positive out of everything, is saying, right, yeah, that's what we needed. We needed to hit out together, and we didn't concede, and that's what we're going to build on, not that we scored 60.
If it was a if they were a kids team, they'd just give the ball to Amy Hardcastle all the time and just told her to score 100 tries or whatever. Or if they were Featherstone, they'd just give it to Gareth Gale and he'd score 6 or whatever.
And the other good thing about the England team is that a lot of different players scored.
Yes.
So again, that shows that they're working together as a team. Some of the debutants managed to get over the try line, which will do wonders for their confidence. So I didn't really see a loser in that at all. And the crowd genuinely got behind it.
And without wanting to spoil anything that might or might not be in the next issue of 4020, I know the current one's only just out, but
the next one's a big one.
I know. Well, certainly in the next one, I thought it was another victory for Leeds over Castleford in the commentary box as well.
I'm not saying anything.
But
we couldn't possibly. We have a vested interest in the.
No, there's no bias
in the commentators.
There's no bias. As I said, it's not even your favourite prop at Leeds, so it's not as even if we're in that situation. So that was England's women and wheelchairs. That's all the positives. Shona Hoyle, proper good interview afterwards as well. Love England, me. I think that's what she said. I don't know why I went into Scully's voice there.
I do think there is something so refreshingly genuine about the wheelchair and the women and wanting to play for their country. I think we get a bit jaundiced in and around the men's game.
We do.
But there is so much to admire in the women's and the wheelchair.
Here's Carsten, before we get on to the Combined Nations All-Star Super Game.
Yep.
A wheel falling off is the official description of the leadership of the 2 rugby league bodies in England. That's Carsten. English not his first language there. With that
Swiss-based German Carsten. You see, it's an analogy.
Here's Brent. I think the Challenge Cup final sums up where we currently are as fans of rugby league. There are only 45,000 tickets for 4 teams, and yet a week after they went on sale, tickets are still available. I'll have to get some if they don't let me in. I'd love, says Nicholas, to be able to hear commentary and discuss the greater issues affecting the sport. Talk about individual games in the UK leads to the loss because few here can or will watch them anymore. No attempt by Super League or the RFL to keep the market in Canada engaged. I mean, I'd say, Nicholas, probably some people put the games up illegally on YouTube, but that's obviously not the best workaround for this situation.
And I do think that what people like Shane Richardson and Brian Noble are saying is that when you make that decision to cut off a market, that tells you where you are as a sport, and it's not about whether Toronto would have won Super League or anything other than the report that says there is no market in America is so self-limiting that you wonder whether that is an attitude now that is become the malaise of the sport.
John Nicholas will be getting behind Montreal tonight. First game of the Stanley Cup. Everyone in Toronto will be behind Montreal, I know that. The players' safety is paramount, says Kev. But what are the RFL stroke Super League or whoever is charged of what goes on the pitch going to do about players going down injured when they clearly aren't?
Again, it's something that needs to be looked. He didn't get charged, but it'd be very interesting to know what people think about Setuaki.
Yes, when is a shoulder charge not a shoulder charge? If you've got a ball in hand,
can you be in? We know that if you run with your elbow raised, with your forearm raised, you can be penalised for that. What about if you lead with your shoulder? Now, is it poor tackling technique from Tyrone McCarthy, who should have been going lower on a big man, or is it that when you run out with somebody's shoulder, you're as dangerous as when you tackle somebody with your shoulder? That's an interesting one that he wasn't even charged. I was speaking to Stevie Ward today about that because I think he has a genuine concern that we know that clearly he's an advocate of looking after players, mental health issues, effects of concussion. He I think is of a mind, and I'm not going to speak for him, that is something the game needs to look at, that if you're ruling out the shoulder charge from one end, you have to rule it out from the other. And I think he was incredulous that there hadn't been a disciplinary about that.
It's one of those strange anomalies, isn't it? England men taking on the Combined Nations All-Stars. I don't think they needed to go the whole... Well, Jake Connor, he's celebrating his Trinidadian heritage. I can't even say. We know why he's in this. You don't need to.
Cruz leaving's only there for his Zimbabwe. No.
Swaziland, Phil.
He wants to play for England in the World Cup.
You don't need any... because everyone knows anyway. But regardless. Didn't Tim Sheens apologise in the post-match to Brett Hodgson because the whole place got injured? Oh dear. The England versus the Combined Nations All-Stars. It was a match. You probably paid more attention to it than I, Phil, because I was trying to edit the post-match of the women's game. It seems like it was a close game, and Shaun Wane got the tight match he wanted, and it was a challenge in his first game in charge, which had no caps on it. So all those people who kept saying Joe Weston's won his second cap, he hasn't. Scully's apoplectic.
He was texting everyone he knew saying, if they get caps, I want my 50th.
I know you've read his column today, and he's obviously not well, but no one's got any extra caps. We will try and get him that 50th cap somehow. But no one got any caps, that's alright. As a thing, as a concept, England needed a game. We'd preferred they played a proper team. They decided to go down this route. As it turns out, Phil, judging by what we've heard afterwards, it sounds like the Combined Nations players really bought into the concept and really wanting to represent whatever they were representing.
Well, I think what they were representing, it meant a hell of a lot to them, and it says a massive amount for Tim Sheens finding the cause to... Sheens said afterwards, when they went into camp, they only had 14 players, and they only ended up having 2 training sessions together. So they needed something to rally around, and that was clearly Mossy Massoy. It meant a huge amount to them to wear his kit. It meant a lot to them that I think he zoomed into the team to talk to them during the build-up. He was there at the game. Sometimes when you need a cause, there's no better cause than that. There were a couple of players that were, sounded out as to maybe whether they could go back to their clubs when it was so difficult to get a team together in the first place. And they said, no, what's happening is really special, and want to be part of that. And you looked at some of the players that then backed up on Sunday for Leeds. I'm only saying that because that was the only game that they backed up in. All 4 of them were particularly the 2 that played for the Combined Nations All-Stars. Cruz Leaming, I thought, was very good in the second half when he came on. Played the full 80 minutes on Sunday, but he wouldn't have dreamt of not playing on the Friday night for that cause and to show where he is, even if it's to Shaun Wane in the opposition. I'm not sure what we could have expected when Lomax and Walmsley pulled out during the week, when you haven't got any of the NRL players for England coming over. It's not the full England squad that would be playing in a World Cup if it kicked off tomorrow.
That's why I'm assuming Morgan Knowles played at prop when...
Well, the only strange thing about that is Shaun Wane saying, I'm only going to pick players who are in their rightful position, and then he picks a loose forward at prop, which seemed odd. There were a couple of standout performances. I thought Tom Davies did all right on his debut, and the story of him driving to the game in a separate car from Sam Tompkins just showed their commitment. I thought Michalewski was really good, the Polish Englishman. Knowles played very well. Paul McShane showed that even though he was 31 and he was given this opportunity late in his career, he didn't let anybody down. And I think you'd be thinking, he could be a really good backup if we needed him, if Darryl Clark wasn't available, or if you're going down the road of Josh Hodgson, that you're bringing in a guy who not only is the man of steel but showed he could go up a level as well. So some positives for England. If I was Shaun Wane, and I think he was being brutally honest on the Saturday morning in his review with the players, as opposed to there's loads of positives in the press conference afterwards. I think he'd be saying, I've tried to instill in you we need to be strong in defence, and you've conceded 4 relatively soft tries. But the only worry with the game was exactly what killed the exiles concept. Very hard to have an atmosphere at a match where you don't want either team to lose, or you're not going to boo or take a side, because the guys who are playing for the opposition are as much people you want to cheer and get behind as the guys who are playing for England. So you are a Hull fan, you're going there going, I really want Jake Connors to do well, and Chris Satter, they've been great for us this year, and you're going, but I'm an England fan. So that dynamic didn't really work. But no, it achieved what everybody wanted to achieve. It looked good on telly because it's outside of the norm, and there's a buy-in to International Rugby League. It's just such a shame that we had games on around it at the same time as it and straight after it.
Why did someone boo during the 13 seconds? That came across on TV. I'm asking that as a rhetorical question.
I think it's because they're dense.
Especially when neither team kneeled, which is the usual excuse.
Well, and also I think it's safe to say that they were drowned out a little bit as well. But yes.
I was going to say something about the... well, this is just the important thing. It was on both 5 Live and TalkSport, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. The game. Because the RFL picked a blank weekend in the Euros to play it. Or blank Friday, rather. And on the BBC Sport website, it was the main story. And the women's game was a main headline as well.
And it was...
no one knows that these games, were what
the men's game was close, therefore it had... if you were listening to it on the radio or come across it on the television, you'd have kept watching it because you didn't know who was going to win. And it turned out that they were pretty evenly matched. The difference, as we said, was a penalty just before half-time. And everybody bought in and committed to it. And that's great. It's just we shouldn't then exploit them by expecting them to play again. And you look at the fixtures this week and you just shake your head and go, it cannot be right.
So where Paul McShane may have done his chances no harm of being in Sean Wayne's final, however many men's squad they're allowed for the World Cup, I don't know how many it is. It's like you don't win the Super League title in April. You win it in October.
Especially if you wait until you finish 5th.
In the rain at Old Trafford when you leave. But some players may well have played their way out to the thoughts of Sean Wayne based on one performance. You can decide at home and not let your Sean Wayne.
And I also think as well that in some of those positions it's fairly obvious where those who played on Friday probably won't figure further down the line. But no, it was a competitive... Reece Lynn, your very own Reece Lynn, who I think if...
Reece Lightning,
if they were going to draw up, let's say, 22 players to be in a World Cup game tomorrow, may not be in it if everybody's fit. Did really well.
He'd be on the probables, this, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Possibles.
Didn't do his case any harm at all if the 2 or 3 people who you might think were in front of him ended up being injured.
Anyway, it was all a waste of time because it wasn't in the papers. So that was England versus the All-Stars, which may well be back or not. Who knows? I don't know. Would you have? But there's no point in saying would you have it back again as a concept because we're in favour of playing actual internationals against actual teams. So it's not that the concept
with caps.
It's not that the concept in and of itself is a bad one. It's just we prefer a different one.
I think, again, you've got to look at history and say, why did the Exiles not work? And it didn't work because by the end of it, it wasn't a contest. So this is a one-off in a, hopefully, World Cup year. It works. But I think, if we're talking about a genuine international calendar moving forward, you've got to hope that, assuming the World Cup goes ahead, that we will see an Ireland team, we will see a Scotland team, we will see a Wales team, and we'll certainly see a much better French team, that they need fixtures going forward, and they need them against England.
Well, as we reach an hour into the programme, it's now time to upset everyone as we look at the actual fixtures that happen involving teams that aren't England. And I am interested that Andy says he's glad England got beat. Why is that, Andy? What don't you like about England?
He might be Scottish.
He might be. That's true. Maybe he's from the Combined Nations All-Stars. Obviously, which games did you go to this weekend? Just the Saints and just the Salford and Leeds games. So obviously we can only talk about what we've seen. I only saw the games on TV.
I watched the games that were on TV and was live at that one.
So Catalans beat Castleford, as you referred to earlier. Darryl Powell said 2 tired teams, but
do you know that's a significant result for Catalan though, because it's the first time they've won for 9 years away. It's the kind of game that normally you'd think it's going to be an Achilles heel with the travel, with it being a midweek. If they've not won there for a very long time, you normally think that's because they've got travelitis, but their best ever start to a season now includes winning games at places they don't normally win. And that's pretty significant for them, I think. So,
will that include Old Trafford?
And they played without two of the players that have been stars for them this year. So that's a significant result for the Dragons, I think. Castleford, we've said, it's about preservation to the middle of July and getting that best 80 minutes they can. The fact that Liam Watts played standoff in that game, which is testament to the skills of Liam Watts to be talented enough to be able to do that. But again, that tells you where we are at the moment with mixing and matching players and trying to make sure people don't get injured and covering for those who are. It's a significant result for the Dragons, even if apparently it was a shocking game with only two long passes from Josh Drinkwater being worthy of note.
We're not there. I saw some people annoyed that Sam Tonges was the England captain, but those were just people who think Jake Connor should be the England fullback because he plays for Hull.
Sam was good. Yeah. Didn't do anything
wrong. Hang on, here's Nicholas. It's concerning England that England were defeated by foreign players. Some have been commonly accused of being past it in Australia. We're only in the UK to wind down their careers. The insinuation of that England A was beaten by Australia B. Jake Connor's not good. He's too good for Australia B. I'm sure I'll get that right. Nearly slipped up there. It is what it is, Nicholas. It is what it is. Although at least we know who's eligible to play for the Combined Nations. Also, that's anyone you want.
Well, that's why it's Combined Nations.
Yeah.
Any nation.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about that is, again, I get what Nicholas is saying, but let's just say, and this is purely hypothetical, that the World Cup goes ahead and a number of players pull out who are coming from the Southern Hemisphere for reasons that
the obvious.
Like
the
2001 Test series that you reminded me of just before, where after 9/11 some Australians didn't want to come over and play a Test match.
Say something while
But what's to say if some of let's pick a player. Matt Pryor was selected for Australia in the World Cup on the basis of the fact that he's playing very well over here and he played for the Combined Nations. I'd say that still makes Australia a very credible opponent. So I'm not sure it was, the ragtag and bobtail combination that would be referred to as Australia B. There's some really good players in that team.
I don't know if Barry McDermott's watching. I know he.
He'll be listening at some stage.
So in 2001, in the Ashes series, they gave out tat to people, and this included collector's cards, which I've got some of, which I'll share with you. I've got.
Were they sponsored by British Gas?
No, not sponsored by anyone. There's Terry O'Connor.
There's a theme here, isn't there?
Terry O'Connor there. Terry O'Connor.
What were you doing?
Terry O'Connor.
Getting so many Terry O'Connors.
6 Terry O'Connors.
I reckon even his missus wouldn't have had that many Terry O'Connors.
I tried to give one away to Matt Horton on Saturday, he didn't want it. I remember once, in 2000, it must have been 2001, because Andy Kelly had left Wakefield, and we were playing Wigan. It must have been a midweek game. And the Wigan players were coming into the bar, because the players came into the same bar where the general public were at this point. And we said to him, "Oh, why don't you come and play for Wakefield?" And he said, "Well, I wouldn't know, but Andy Kelly's left." I don't believe it.
Island coach, Andy.
Exactly. So there he is. So if you've got a Terry O'Connor card, 6 of them. Player tip. Never give up on any play, any tackle or any chase when playing rugby league. Card number 16 in a set of 27.
Wouldn't be much of a game of snap though, that would it?
No. The other 27 included. What's his name? That Australian fellow who played fullback.
Michael
Bradford.
Withers.
That's him.
So did you get the other?
I don't know. I don't know why I've got 6 Terry O'Connors.
Were you that much of a Terry O'Connor fan?
No. No, he's great. I'm telling you. Said a lot to me once.
You get him to sign.
Yeah. So Terry, if you're watching, we can have him. So that was Castleford versus Cathlands, which turned into a discussion about Terry O'Connor. It's probably more interesting. Carson will have one. Well, that means I have to post it to foreign. Cost a fortune now, Brexit. You always said you would. On Friday, no one watched it because it was played at the same time as England. Hull beat Huddersfield. Having been 10-0 down.
I think most of the Hull fans that we saw on social media talking about it were extremely praiseworthy of the spirit of their team to come back from 10 down to score 17 unanswered points. Third consecutive defeat for Huddersfield. I don't know whether that's a worrying sign or not for Ian Watson, but clearly what was going wrong that started to go right appears to be going wrong again. So
having earlier in the season been, I've got full faith in Huddersfield turning things around. Now,
process.
Was I wrong? I don't know.
Darnell McIntosh, rumoured to to Hull next year.
Oh, right.
Snapped his Achilles, probably out for the season. That is a real concern. Big test for Huddersfield this Thursday when they play the Dragons. I think we'll see how they hit back, what they're made of. But
brackets attendance not given.
30% only so far this year. I had Huddersfield challenging for the top four, and we will be at the halfway stage of the season after these 2 rounds of matches. And now
overtaken in the league by your 33.3% recurring Wakefield Trinity super team, who beat depleted Wigan, sorry.
Well, did Wakefield have a few out?
Doesn't matter, because we're not famous like Wigan are.
Just thought I'd check.
14-6.
Good win.
Ryan Hampshire, Matty Ashurst, who's just signed a new contract, and Hanley for Wigan. Could have got his dad in. He's doing a speaking tour. What's going on there?
Telling us how much she enjoyed being on Dancing on Ice.
Yeah, and being the Man of Steel thing.
Scored a great try headingly once. He still remembers it.
Yeah.
Down the wing for Bradford.
Yeah. Against Fem, yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? When Wakefield were really struggling, there was a definite Chester out.
Chester in now, yeah.
But now he's talking about
sign a new contract,
on the verge of re-signing a new contract. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I think he's doing a pretty decent job, isn't he, with the resources that he's got available. But you're now going to explain to me.
Well, I didn't see this game because I couldn't be bothered paying £25 to go.
Wakefield think Lee Gaskill is an addition to their squad for next
year.
year.
We've been asked about this, haven't we?
Where's he going to play?
I don't know anything about players.
Where's he going to go? I mean, you would assume that for the next few seasons, if they're fit, that Lino and Miller are going to be the half-back combination. They're both signed relatively long contracts, and when they play well, they play very well together. Max Jowett's had to work really hard to get that full-back shirt. Gaskill can play full-back.
I think it's fairly obvious to anyone who pays any attention to Wakefield that Jowett obviously isn't favoured. I'll put it like that. Because Scott Griggs came in. Who's the guy from London? Walker?
Yeah, and he hasn't gone. He's just been injured.
And now Gaskell.
Ashelbot taken on loan.
So, but I think Max Jarrett's one of the most talented players we've had come through in years. And I think if he moves on and finds somewhere else, good on him. Because I don't want to see his talent wasted. At the moment it's been wasted at Wakefield.
Ryan Hampshire, does that signal the end for him?
Probably should have been last year, shouldn't it?
I don't.
Why did he leave and then come back? The grass isn't always greener, is it? Maybe his agents wasn't doing a good job, I don't know.
Well, maybe there weren't other suitors.
I don't know. I'm a big Max Jarrett fan. I think he's a very talented player.
I just think that signing's a strange one because I don't know where Gaskell's earmarked to play. When you sign somebody and he is your probably big name signing for 2022, he's going to play if he's fit.
That's a damning phrase.
Well, there ain't going to be a lot of big name signings, let's be honest, because the state that the game is in at the moment. So there's going to be more people going home, and I think, talking of Wigan, we have to acknowledge that Bevan French has gone for the season and he's returned home. He's had an operation to repair his hamstring. Now that's a real big blow for Wigan, but we hope he's all right. We know he's got some things to attend to at home as well, and I hope that goes well for him. Wigan did announce that he's back for next year, that the option's been taken. Well, let's hope, because that we want as many entertainers as we can, and we know they're not signing George Williams, so They're going to need him back.
Before my words are misconstrued, I'm not saying, Lee Gaskell's terrible or blah,
No,
blah, blah.
I'm just saying it's a signing that would
Yeah.
hint that somebody who I know you have admiration for could be leaving.
There is only one player who I have not supported wearing Wakefield's colours. Leave it at that. Wakefield have won. Brill. And now we've got
It's a good result, and they do perform well against
Yeah.
Wigan. Their record recently is good.
Yeah. Coaches are booked. Cheers, Sean. So we'll go to Salford on Thursday and lose now. No, we'll win. No, we'll probably lose. No, we'll win. We'll win. Warrington versus Lee, which had all the atmosphere of England versus the Combined Nations All-Stars.
The same venue.
Yeah.
Gareth Woodard now injured for Warrington, which is a blow because he was playing very well.
What a game of rugby league this was between two teams playing rugby league. It was just a match, wasn't it? Filling 80 minutes on Sky. I'm sure many people have turned off before the end because the result was never really in doubt. No disrespect to anyone
Warrington
involved.
Warrington were winning and won.
Yeah. It's no disrespect to anyone involved, but it just... The game went exactly as you thought it would do, and it did.
It was a strange choice as a game, but you understood that they were setting up their cameras there for the following day. It made sense. And
do it like the Women's Super League, just pick a random game and move it there.
It made sense from that point of view. But the... and Lee could well be not far off a win. But they now have played 12 games and have yet to have a win. And they're 18% behind the team that they're chasing, but they only play them once. I would say, they could very easily beat Leeds on Thursday. Who knows? But I look at that Leeds squad and there is effort there clearly, but there isn't the depth. And they were always going to struggle this year. So why is it a surprise that they're struggling? And the commentary team did their very best to say,
It was very much from
there could be a shock. They've scored a try. There could be a shock. And
very much from
we all knew the longer it went on, it wasn't going to be.
The Richard Keys school of 0-0 at half time, but don't go away because it could still be great in a second, But no.
It was a game.
I don't want to see Brian Carney exiled to Al Jazeera.
Warrington did all right, and again I think they had some good performers among their younger players. Danny Walker played well at hooker, and Josh Thewlis is another one who doesn't seem to get a long run of games, but every time I see him play, the kid can play.
It just was what it was. They beat the team in front of them they were expected to beat and did it comfortably.
Yeah.
You can't knock that. That's exactly what good teams are supposed to do. They didn't have any trouble in that game whatsoever. You still worry about Lee, 0 from 12.
What I would say
is relegation happening, by the way? Did anyone ask her?
Yes, as far as he knows it is.
What do you mean as far as he knows? He's in charge of the competition.
I also asked if Toulouse would be promoted, bearing in mind that there was some conjecture about Toronto, and he did say he didn't have any reason why they shouldn't be. But he didn't equivocally say yes. But Wigan-Warrington
Wednesday night
will be a very interesting game on the basis of the fact that it's almost now... I mean, Wigan's next two games are Warrington and St Helens. It's a pretty crucial part of the season for Wigan. Got to play them twice in four days. And John Bateman won't be playing because he was injured playing for England. But Warrington look very functional.
Yeah. I've got to say that, before we move on, Steve Price said a word he shouldn't have said after the match on TV.
Yes, he did.
He's apologised, the club apologised, Sky apologised. Sky don't need to apologise, it's not their fault.
The RFL are investigating it, which they should.
So we'll see what happens from there. Very poor choice of word.
Yeah. And if there's a fine on the back of that, he'll pay it and he'll learn from that experience.
The letters page in League Express today is very disappointing because there's nothing to get your blood boiling at all, really. Very, very poor work from the letter writers this week. I don't have any excuse to. I could have written something in. I didn't really have much to do last week. But Graham Dawson of Castleford wins this week's award because, as well as having to go at referees, he wants to get rid of Dal Powell.
Before Wembley?
Yeah. When is Dal Powell going to do the honest, decent thing and walk away from the club. So Lee Radford can come in and get his own team sorted with the players who want to play for him.
Well, he won't get them until next year.
This is one of two sayings I learned that come to mind. Whatever happens to Castleford Tigers, Darryl Powell will walk away at the end of the season without a second thought. I'm sure I enjoyed that time at Cass.
He's Mr. Cass.
It's great. Got a pitch and everything. It's wide. If his job at Warrington Wolves were available to him now, and that's kind of like, because we don't know what's going to happen with this, he would be gone in a shot and no messing, because if Cass means as much as to him as he makes out, why is he leaving? Well, that's the same as John Wells. He's leaving as well. He loves Cass. I wish John Wells would tweet something about a failed director of rugby, but he's too good for that. Get out now, Mr. Powell, says Mr. Dawson.
Pre-Wembley.
Stop wasting the club's time and yours,
Pre-Wembley.
as you're only waiting for your new job at Warrington to start. I won't leave a job when I'm getting paid. That's why I collected all that furlough money. It's a bit. If you can get rid of him after Wembley, because after that the season doesn't matter, because Cass aren't going to win the grand final. I thought it was a bit. Surely, after the job he's done there, he's allowed to wander around at Wembley and do all that. I know where are they in the league? Just outside.
Would you like him to go and take Oliver Holmes and Peter Matautia with him now as well? Two of Castleford's best players and likely to give them the best chance of winning at Wembley.
They've got the disadvantage at the moment that they can keep playing and losing and lose ground on Hull KR, who can just sit at home and
but
listen to their
I don't think we can read too much into anything. So the only thing we know this year, because of everything, coaches aren't even coaching. They're just trying to get a collection of individuals together to get on the field on match day. We know that Catalan are very good and Lee aren't very good. That's all we know this year.
Are you sure?
That's all we know.
Because if Derek's watching...
Hello, Derek. I'll see you on Thursday, all being well.
No, I'd be laughing like he was on the telly the other. I can't remember what he was laughing at. Maybe it's poor choices of coaches, I don't know. Into the Championship, where look at this, Featherstone Rovers. What more could you want from life than the mighty Fev? 10 from 10, 6 tries from Gareth Gale.
Do you know him?
No, not really. They're all tall, apart from one of his sisters. Yeah. His mum and dad are tall. His grandma and granddad tall. I'm named after his granddad, I think. Ken. His sister's tall. His other brother tall. 6 tries in the game.
That's a feat, no matter who you play.
Joint record. They're going into Wembley, because there's an extra syllable in there, as we know from Aussie Art Dealers.
Best start ever to a season? 10 out of 10?
Wet sail and all that, don't really know what that means, not nautical. And as opposed to York, losing at Whitehaven, no disrespect to Whitehaven, not saying any disrespect to them, York no good.
Again, I think you'll know that the
Castleford in this situation.
The prize this year is not going to be getting out of. Even if you finish second in the Championship, the likelihood is they're not going to get promoted. Even if they can get themselves into a playoff position by the end of the year, but give them 80 minutes at Wembley as likely underdogs. The season hinges on that.
We've got a new kit and everything, haven't they, as well? So
they're doing some good replica stuff for Wembley. At York. Is it based on the 1938 kit when they were last at Wembley, I think?
But they weren't, because they're not the same club.
Well, we know that. Once a wasp, always a wasp.
The Wasps, yeah.
So, brilliant. Featherstone, I think more than anything, just playing a lot of really good rugby at the moment. 442 points. Everybody's talking about how expansive Toulouse are, and percentage-wise, 400 points in 8 games is better than 442 in 10 games. But that is an entertaining team to watch at the moment. And maybe some credit should go to a coach who... again, is universally in some parts of the world not liked, but actually he's a really engaging guy, and he understands the sport.
Is he the Richard Agar of the Championship?
Yeah.
I mean, he was doomed at Wakefield because he said we're playing for the middle eights, which he was right, but he just wasn't supposed to say it. And in the end, him getting the sack was the right thing, because Brian Smith came out, we beat Bradford, Scott Moore, all And
But
the story continues. But
he is a good guy, and it deserves to lead the team out of Wembley. And they're playing good rugby.
Elsewhere in the Championship, Halifax beat Batley 22-12, which is a good result for Halifax because Batley obviously are flying high.
That is a great result, and again restricted Batley points wise and on their own midding, which hasn't happened a lot this year. Only one try, wasn't it, that the Bulldogs scored. I
think we've got to give a lot of credit to Swinton, who ran London very, very close to say that London are full time and Swinton are not. Although Swinton are still bottom of the table, 0 from 11, but 38-24 the final scoreline to London. So they've got to give the credit to Swinton there. Dewsbury winning away at Oldham, 18-4. Toulouse.
Oldham, we now know, not going to Toulouse on Saturday, so if you're planning on watching that game, don't. It's not on. Newcastle aren't going either to Toulouse.
Don't need to cross off my paper, I do. Oh, by the way, what time is it now? It's as we're recording this, it's 7:15. We're half an hour away from kick-off between Wigan and Saints women, apparently.
Or not.
Well, I don't know, because on their Twitter feeds it doesn't say that they're not playing. But it's in the paper that they're playing, and I don't know.
But it's not on Twitch, even though it should be. Apparently. And you probably noticed no Robert Elston either, still on furlough.
Yeah, it's true. I thought it meant the real one then.
I think he is on furlough, but
that's... Sheffield Eagles Twitter, of course, won yesterday with their fans saying stop being good to Toulouse, who didn't and won 54-6 at the home of Rugby League, the Rocket.
Again, some spectacular tries, I'm told. And
Widnes won in Yorkshire.
That's a good result.
I saw quotes from their coach that they practised on a shortened pitch this week as they won at Bradford.
That's a big result though for Widnes, because it was only three weeks ago that they were struggling and
now they're
bottom of the table, and now they're just on the fringe of the playoffs, and they've beaten one of the teams that had a run of games. I can't remember what Bradford won, about 6 on the trot. That's a good win.
Yeah,
good win.
A championship. What a division.
Attendance not given.
No.
But League One. Barrow Workington game of the weekend. 24-all draw. 3,000 people there.
Only a few more people at Bradford than there were at Barrow.
Well, I suspect as well that there were more at Barrow than at some of the Super League games where it says a round figure of 4,000.
I bet there'll be more at Barrow and Workington than there will be at Huddersfield and Catalans on Thursday, which is probably not a fair comparison because Catalans is a bit further away than Working. Mind you, Barrow's a bit further away from the other two, isn't it, in Cumbria? Because they're in Lancashire. It's complicated. But still, they've got an idea. If you come before 1 o'clock, I think you have to register, you get in free.
You have to buy beer though, because what else are you going to do for 2 hours before?
They got to watch the Barrow ladies beat Widnes, which apparently was a close game, so that's good.
But they're making it an event going to Barrow. They're unbeaten as well.
So people go and they spend money.
They have a good time and they go again. And kids take their parents because they've been given a ticket in the schools.
But Phil, they're giving away tickets for free, and it doesn't count because.
If they get their central funding cut, they're putting something in place that will make them sustainable.
Like Rochdale giving away kids tickets, and they get nearly 1,400 against North Wales.
Fooey got a couple of tries.
38-28 for the Hornets. Coventry were winning, but in the end lost to Doncaster, 34-16.
Yeah, ahead at half time.
Yeah. Keithley Cougars. Now, I need to make a point about the Keithley Cougars because the current tradition is that it is like St Helens women or Wakefield Trinity ladies, because ladies in Wakefield. Surely it should just be Keithley Cougars men and Keithley Cougars.
You would have
thought that one free?
You would have thought marketing-wise that you've just hit on something. The Keithley Cougars.
I've had to run
women's team.
I've had to run part of my column past someone this week because I had to check it was okay, but it was okay. So Keithley beat London Skulls, but again, 34-22. Sounds like the Skulls have done okay there, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Apparently,
that sounds patronising. It means
it was very competitive. They were ahead a couple of times. I was listening to a bit of that on the way home from Salford, and I think Keithley have had some issues with the vid and injuries, but Scholars were credible, absolutely credible.
And West Wales 12-18, which again sounds like a closer game than they've had recently.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter will be very happy with the win. 26-0 at half time, so 12-all second half. So they get a point under the Nigel Wood scheme, but unfortunately that doesn't exist. So sorry about that one, West Wales.
No Rangi and still no sign of Gavin.
No, keep going, keep on keeping on. Giving away tickets to kids is marketing 101, says JWL TV. It is. It's simple. Do simple
Building
things.
for the future.
Surely Sky could have put a Super League game on yesterday, says Graham, as there was netball on all 3 channels. Possibly does, isn't it?
Netball's good.
Leeds, did they finish third in the end or fourth? Fourth.
In that first season, made the playoffs.
It's not bad, is it? No, netball is. Please don't mention Elston. I don't need that foul language in my house, says Nicholas. Have you seen Nicholas's hair? It's better than mine. He's gone proper at the sides. Mine's...
Well, hopefully, if everything falls into place, he might be here with the Grizzlies.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Later in the year.
Fingers
the
crossed.
Canadian Masters team is due over here.
We'll
have him on if they come
on.
on.
Yeah, we're going to have all our Canadian friends somehow. I need to... I got an email from the Rugby League World Cup people about my accreditation today, and I thought...
Did it say you didn't put your nationality?
Yeah. But what have I done
Is
wrong?
that because the box wasn't there when you applied?
I can't remember. But it doesn't mean I can tick all those wheelchair games now.
Good man.
Women's Super League fixtures then. Tonight, St Helens versus Wigan, but apparently it's not on. Sunday, at the Rocket, Leeds versus Warrington. So I'll be there, obviously, cheering all our friend on. Followed by the big one.
The biggest game of the weekend.
Don't put pressure on Huddersfield versus Wakefield.
Never mind Wigan Saints on Sunday night.
Don't put pressure on Huddersfield versus Wakefield. I was down at training last Tuesday because you might have seen the footage you got from down there. Spirit's high, you know. It's interesting because you get access that you don't get. You know, so you stood there listening to the debrief after the result from the week before. They picked out that Warrington scored their points that beat Wakefield in 4 minutes of the 80. So 4 minutes out of the match was where it cost Wakefield the game. It's small margins. But come on, Wakefield. Fingers crossed.
Said the neutral commentator.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, am I?
No.
It's all right. As long as you don't pretend...
We make no pretense.
Pro Wakefield. Featherstone versus Wigan. I think that's being played at whatever Featherstone Stadium's called. Millennium Stadium these days. And Bradford versus York, which is being played after the men's game at York on Sunday. And on Monday, on the Twitch, it's Castleford versus Saints, which is great because that's up against Warrington versus Leeds on Sky. I don't know. And that's been played at Odsal. Now, if...
With the small...
Yeah, so why is that okay for the women to play at? When there's the Rocket, there's Fev...
Twitch games are being played at
the Jungle. Cassie's... You know, I know Cassie's pitch isn't... But it's long established, so it's not as if it's...
But again, it goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Unless you have somebody overseeing where the sport is going, it's all piecemeal.
Where is the sport going?
I don't know.
Where is the sport going? Where is the sport? Oh, I thought I'd emailed them, but it's not anything important. What else have we got? Have we done everything today?
Don Manfredi.
Yes, and this is sad, isn't it? Because, as we always say, and I think we started the program, didn't we, saying it's lions led by donkeys at times, and the lions get hurt, and you hope they are given the best possible opportunities, and they obviously get more guidance now than they ever have done in terms of post-playing careers. But Don Manfredi's had some great moments in his career, but unfortunately, lots of injuries, and this will be his last season. Massive
kudos to somebody who can come back from 2 ACL injuries in almost quick succession. Was the hero of the 2018 Grand Final. 27 is no age to be being forced to say goodbye, but I think he knows that There's no more that his body can give. I think he's done the absolutely most honourable thing of saying, I'm definitely playing for the rest of this season.
Yeah.
When he clearly is, again, struggling with an injury at the moment. I thought he could have been a regular in an England shirt if he'd not suffered the injury he has. What was bizarre as well is realising when he saw his career stats, hasn't played 100 games.
Wow.
For Wigan. No, I wish him well in his retirement, and what we don't want is too many players being burnt out too soon, which is why we do have to be. I know that none of his injuries were as the result of anything illegal. We're not talking about concussion or high tackles, but again, we're asking our players to put massive toll on their bodies, and we need to look after them. And again, I go back to, if we were previewing games this week, how the hell could you preview the second half of the week when teams are playing 2 matches? You know, Castleford are playing on Wednesday, then they've got to play again the following Tuesday. St Helens play on Wednesday, they've got to play again on Sunday. Nonsense. Wigan play on Wednesday, they've got to play on Sunday. Warrington play on Wednesday, they've got to play on Monday. It's just ridiculous. Leeds play on Thursday, they've got to play again on Monday. It's just nonsense. I'm sorry. It's nonsense. Huddersfield play on Thursday and then they play again on Tuesday. Now, I think Lee and Wakefield were probably the sensible ones in all this and got their second game out of the way earlier in the season. But
and avoided COVID, apparently. Because we've still got to fit those games in for Hull KR. Those games are not going to get fitted.
No. We are now going to see why it's done on a percentage basis. Saints can't possibly play all the games they've got to play. Well, Leeds and Catalan will play each other home and away twice in a week. So, you know, there are some strange decisions when you go on calls with the people that run the game and they genuinely do think that everything's okay, and yet they've come up with a fixture list that bears no relation to anything called duty of care. I may have mentioned that before on this programme about duty of care and what do we mean by it.
It's two memes, isn't it? It's the one of the dog in the room that's on fire where it says everything's okay, and it's what's his name, the Iraqi fella.
Yes, with the burning buildings behind him.
Yeah, he might be on the Super League podcast next week. I don't know. Andy, we've spoken about Steve Price. You must have missed that. That was earlier. Sandy says lions and donkeys. When would these two ever be in the same room? Quite about, is it World War One?
Yeah, led by donkeys.
Led by donkeys, because you know the people in the trenches fighting a stupid war.
But that might even have been the Crimea.
Oh, there you go.
Same thing happened
on the Ukraine shirts. Anyone watch the Origin game? Says Sandy. She's back. You'll be supporting Montreal as well, won't you, Sandy? Nicholas isn't, but he's letting Canada down here. No Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup since 1993. Now they've got a team in the final and not supporting them. What's that all about? Anyone watch the Origin games? I supported Cass in 2017. Because I played Leeds. Anyone watch the Origin games? Both games so far have been incredible to watch, and despite the one-sided scoreboard, the game was entertaining throughout.
That's because all the Penrith players play for New South Wales.
Queensland are rubbish, aren't they? What's happened? It must be cyclical, because didn't they win 8 in a row or something once?
Well, it's probably no coincidence that all of their teams,
although good ones like Jonathan Thurston,
are pretty much crap.
Yeah.
Brisbane, North Queensland, and the Gold Coast are not exactly shaking up the trees at the moment. So yeah, they've got less players to call on, and they're not as good as the core of players that they had. But what happens if we get non-competitive State of Origin games and suddenly the Australians realise there's something called internationals? They could play those instead.
I did enjoy it on the Women's Origin at the start of it. I can't remember who the speaker was. It might have been Ruan Sims, who was brilliantly multitasking, having to answer inane questions from the commentary box and actually coach on the sidelines. Was that Jeff Tuvey in the...
No, he wasn't coaching. Definitely wasn't coaching. Just an observing brief.
They referenced the fact that, of course, they'd had interstate games in the past, but they weren't Origin, so they didn't count. So.
Origin only started in 1980.
And the women's Origin only started like a couple of years ago. So.
And Ali Brigginshaw swore on TV.
That was brilliant. I can't repeat it. See if it makes the column.
You can put it in the column.
Yeah, it's like the Guardian. It's not like the Sun where they, you know...
Oh, there'll be no asterisk.
Naked breast, but you can't say that word. Need GI back, says Andy. He might be back. Well, he's not retiring.
No, he said he'd be back in about
four
4 or 5 weeks. Yes. I've just been told you didn't hear. No, that's because your microphone... Somebody said the microphone's not working. Yeah, I think he'll be back. He doesn't want to leave before at least he's had the chance to get back on the pitch and contribute. So
he's not Willie Mason.
Seems a good egg.
Will Lee win a game this year?
They could quite easily win a game on Thursday, but will they win enough games to not be relegated? And I'm not sure they will. Although I do have to say, having seen Salford close up this week, if they don't get their discipline right, they could be drawn into it, because whilst there is undoubted talent in people like Morgan Escaray, who was sensational, even Tuilola here at fullback absolutely works. He caused havoc every time he got his hands on the ball. If you're going to give away so many penalties and keep getting men sent off and sin-binned in games, you're going to struggle.
Because that's it. If Lee beat Salford, they only played once, don't they? Because you've mentioned this enough times, I remember this.
They've played once already this season, and Salford won. And they've got one game left to play.
Lee only have to win the next one and jag, as they say, a win from somebody else.
Assuming
when Saints put all the kids in like they did against London.
Assuming that Salford don't win another game.
Yeah. I don't know if Sid's watching, because with Hull not playing at the minute.
Hull are doing really well.
Yeah. Graham's asked when's Scroy back on. When he's fit.
Well, if you haven't seen his column in League Express, it's a story that can now be told. Sadly, he has lost the sight in one of his eyes, so he's not driving at the moment and probably won't be for the foreseeable future. So at the moment, as he has no Wi-Fi at his house, as we've said on numerous occasions, he keeps ringing me to tell me what he's seen on CFAX. It's not a joke, that genuinely is. I can't find any radio commentary of the game. What's happening at Salford?
I think it's all on the internet, I think they don't get on like medium wave. Yeah, they've turned medium wave off.
So, as soon as he's well enough to come back, and hopefully he's driving again soon, and his contact lens that he's having fitted to make sure that he can accommodate his vision with one eye, he'll be back. But at the moment, his health is the main thing.
We're going to have to go around his house and do it there,
Well, we have to take the Wi-Fi, don't we?
Yeah.
He'd love that. Have a beer.
Like from Scully's Barbecue.
I'll have a barbecue.
There's a programme on, I put it on Twitter today, from him playing in 1984 on Great Britain tour. Northern Rivers Division, 18 years old.
I know, he was just fearless.
This is something that wouldn't have been an issue in Scully's day, but is now, because we are more aware of things. And he wouldn't have been an issue with Scully, because he's obviously a ridiculously confident person in and of himself. But, and this is something I learnt last week as well, even in Women's Super League, which doesn't have the intense scrutiny of, say, Super League, when you're throwing in kids, which 16, 17 years olds are, we've seen, casts in the men's team, that's pressure. Because it is as soon as you put a tag on there like Super League, there is an added pressure.
And I think, again, the world has changed. It's a full-time professional sport. If you are not physically developed to take the knocks, then there are very few 17-year-olds that are at their physical prowess at that age. It's slightly different to when Scully came in and it was a part-time game, and yes, he had the confidence and clearly had the skill and the ability and the belief, and some very good players around him, which he's the first to acknowledge, that the likes of David Topless, if you had any talent whatsoever, he was a guy you wanted to play, setting up space and time for you. It's not like that now. You are likely to be smashed by a wizened, well, if you're playing Salford, literally smashed by a wizened old prop, and you might be a 17-year-old kid with all the athletic ability in the world. It takes some getting over.
Melly's not happy, and I miss seeing him at Headingley in the cafe. Is it about time the RFL clamped down on players attacking the kicker? This season it seems there is a deliberate attempt to take the kicker out. The referee should be more active in eradicating it.
Yes, if it's an issue, absolutely. But we don't have all games filmed, do we? They're not all on Sky. There isn't a video replay, and it is more often than not a split-second thing. I think that was what upset Luke Gale with Ryan Lannon on Sunday, that he felt he'd been hit late. Doesn't excuse punching Ryan Lannon on a number of occasions, for which he's been banned for 2 matches. But that was the cause behind it, that he felt he'd been hit late from a kick. And we need to keep an eye on it. Disciplinary need to keep an eye on it.
I think we're done, aren't we? I think
Preserve the playmakers.
But all the crap players, they can all get better. That doesn't matter. I don't think there's anything else, is there? Unless there's anything you can think of. I mean, we mentioned...
Just hope the World Cup's on.
Yeah, you've been on a million Zoom calls. We mentioned those. There wasn't... I'm guessing there wasn't really any news coming out of your hour-and-a-half long sitting listening to Ken Davy answer spurious questions about things.
No.
Despite what you might be on. Not to save you clicking. There you go. It's not going to take up the pages and pages of the next issue of 4020.
Well, it went from being a page to a column.
I mean, I can write you some more. Oh, it's all right.
Oh, we've got plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, Shane Richardson was more entertaining, that is for sure. Although, didn't speak in finished sentences, which makes transcription quite hard. But yeah, read all about the debate in the special issue. We'll tell you why it's special a bit nearer the time.
Wembley is approaching.
Looking forward to it. I just hope everybody who is fit and both teams are able to, well, all 4 teams are able to pick from their best 17, and we get a true spectacle.
I'm just waiting for that email from the RFL to drop in so I can get accredited, apply, and know that. If I do, I'll be lined up there at Wembley, miles behind Pete Smith of the Yorkshire Evening Post. He'll be there before everyone else.
Tuesday, yeah, he's got
camped out outside. He's there now. Trying to get in. England are playing Germany tomorrow. Well, if you would like a Terry O'Connor card, Carson says he's going to come over from Germany to get one. So
it would be good to see.
He's got his hair and everything. Well, I'll go up to the camera because now we will be back next week. I'm still.
It might not be,
but
Monday.
We don't know when.
No, it might have been the usual time.
Yeah,
slot.
it might not be live. I don't know because I don't know because I don't know when I'm working next week for a start. And obviously there are games on Monday.
There are,
which doesn't help. And it's on telly. And there's no point in us going up against Sky because they've got more views than us. We might have more views than Hull versus Salford. I don't know. Andy says 150 of us go every year, Friday to Sunday at Wembley. I hope it's good. I hope it's good.
So the only thing I would end with,
yes,
well done Montenegro on playing an international, and well done El Salvador for applying for being the next nation to get accredited status.
I see if Mascot get their shirts on sale yet.
Well,
I've got my t-shirt looking at Denver. You remember that?
And an event by Jamaica in the community.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
Shirt looks good.
Oh, you're not going to miss them.
No. We need the World Cup, don't we?
We do.
We do need the World Cup. And
I don't think anybody else realises how much we need the World Cup. So it's all very well people in the Southern Hemisphere saying we're not sure whether we want to come. If you don't come, we are going to be in real trouble on this side of the world.
But hey, we've still got Leigh versus Salford to look forward to.
Thank you everyone again. Enjoy your Terry O'Connor, we do. I bet Jared's playing Thursday.
Oh, big man, coming up here. That's what he says, doesn't he? I think that's what he says.
Was that good? Have you got a golden tallis card?
For viewers on Facebook who obviously missed that, because that was on YouTube. There he is, look. Let's put him there. Look. Hello, O'Connor. I can't do his voice, I can only do Scully's. He's our focus. How I've got 6 of them, I've got no idea.
The fact that it's official merchandise.
Yes. Oh, Terry O'Connor, mate. See you later. Bye-bye. Bye, podcast.